Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Alex Lapierre. I'm the program director for nonprofit Border Community Alliance. And this is our weekly series called the Borderlands Forum. It's our main educational initiative that connecting people to all different subjects surrounding the borderlands, whether it's ecological, historical, cultural, anthropological. And today we're featuring archaeology, and we're joined by two wonderful people, two wonderful friends, John Carpenter and Lupita Sanchez, who are both archaeologists at INAH Sonora. And to share a little bit of background about Guadalupe Sanchez and John Carpenter, Guadalupe received her BA in archaeology at the Escuela Nacional de Antropología y Historia in Mexico, and her master's and PhD degrees with the School of Anthropology at the University of Arizona. Over the past 25 years, her investigations have concentrated on northern Mexico with various topics encompassing the Pleistocene, Holocene hunter-gatherers, the introduction of early maize in agriculture, human adaptations, paleoethnobotany, paleoecology, geoarchaeology, and lithic technological organization. At the present, she is investigating the Fin del Mundo site in Sonora. It's the first site known where the Clovis interacted in the late prehistoric occupation in the valleys in the western slopes of the Sierra Madre in Sonora. Her current research is primarily concerned with human adaptations of long duration and climatic change in the Sonoran Desert, and she has published numerous articles in English and Spanish on these subjects. And her husband, John Carpenter, he's a research professor with the Instituto Nacional de Antropología y Historia at the Centro INAH in Hermosillo, Sonora. His previous research includes projects in Arizona, California, Oregon, New Mexico, Texas, Utah, as well as Chiapas, Chihuahua, Sinaloa, Sonora, and Zacatecas, Mexico. His research has concentrated upon the archaeology and ethnohistory of the northwestern Mexico, where he's conducted various diverse investigations on Paleo-Indian, archaic period hunter-gatherers of the Sonoran Desert, the diffusion of maize to the north, and the beginnings of agriculture, the early and middle Holocene climatic reconstruction, origin and dispersal of Uto-Aztecans and Cajitan speakers, cultural frontiers, social, political, economic dimensions in northern Sinaloa, cultural interaction and integration in the Sahuaripa Sonora region, and long-distance exchange routes linking West Mexico and northwestern Mexico, southwestern U.S., as well as diverse regional exchange systems. Well, thank you so much to John and also to Lupita for joining us from Hermosillo this morning. We're really looking forward to your presentation. I know we've got a lot of friends of BCA on the call today, and a lot of people that are interested in the eastern river valleys of Sonora. And so we're excited to learn about your work in Fronteras. So without further ado,
Thank
John.
you very much, Alex, and we're excited to present our research.
Okay, we need to share screens.
Share your screen. Okay, you should have access now.
Okay. No, here. Okay. Well, this project that we are carrying out, it has money from the NSF and from INAH too, and Matthew Pales and John Carpenter and I are working together. No, but where is Fronteras? Probably all of you know, but it's like 30 miles south from Douglas and Agua Prieta. No, it's one of the parallel rivers that are in eastern Sonora. Well, we started working in this area because we wanted to fill out all the spaces that were empty. You know, like John Carpenter and I did a project in the Rio Fuerte, in Sinaloa. Then in 2008 and 2010, and then Richard Pels did some work in the Alamos region, and then in the Rio Sonora region, and Cristina Garcia and Emiliano Gallaga did some work in the Onabas Valley, and and Matt Pales, the son of Richard Pales, made a survey in Moctezuma, and there were all these spaces, empty spaces that we wanted to know what was going on. So we had been in Sahuaripa, Nuri, and Fronteras. Why Sahuaripa? Because Di Peso, among others, proposed, Di Peso is who excavated in Casas Grandes, no, and Charles Di Peso that worked in the 70s, proposed that Sahuaripa as a waypoint from exchange route between Paquimé and the coast near Guaymas. No, is why we start working there. No. Also, it was a supposed route taken by Ibarra in 1564 to Paquimé, following the late pre-Hispanic long-distance exchange route, presumably also utilized by Cabeza de Vaca in 1536, by Marcos de Niza, and by Coronado. Well, so these are the 3 rivers that we have target in our project, and all of them has something in common. There are all these valleys, all these parallel valleys, then where all the moisture that come from the Sierra Madre stay in all these valleys. And you know, we are not in the desert anymore because very few humidity goes to the coastal plain, because all the rain stay all the moisture stay in the valley, in the valleys. And where we are about the archaeological cultural areas and the Northwest and the Southwest, no, maybe John wants to talk about this, no? The Rio Sonora, we're in the Rio Sonora area, more or less. To the west is Trincheras, no, and to the east is Casas Grandes, that is the Magion culture too, and the Hohokams are in the north. And to the south are Huatabampo and Serrana, that are very little known, but we have worked there, but there are very little work on it. Okay. If we look at the cultural, the archaeological traditions and the distribution of the 16th century linguistic groups, we can see that, well, the Rio Sonora is where the Opatas were, no? And the Yaquis, Mayos, and Tahues are where Huatabampo and Serrana are. And then Paquimé is in the Magion, no, area?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, well, the Pimas, the Trincheras is in the Pima area. So we can see that the Opatas were part of a Caïta cultural continuum that stretched across the coastal plain of northern Mexico. Do you want to say anything else?
I can't think of anything to add to your observation. I should explain that I suffer from MS and can't speak very clearly, so that's why you have to suffer with Lupita's pronunciation.
Okay, but what is the Rio Sonora culture? Well, it is located in the Rio Sonora mainly, but in all the Opata region too. And the architecture in this area is cobble, river cobbles, cimientos or foundations in the houses. And the principal ceramic is a brownware, you know, and most of the sites are in mesas, in tall mesas around the valleys. The Sahuaripa Valley, that was the other valley that we work on, no, we found a lot of sites all over around the river, and is what it looked like. It's only like 600 meters above sea level, so it's not that high. No, it's not a high valley. No, and we did some excavations there, and you can see that are the same. No, cobbles making the foundations, and some of them are room blocks. No, like this one. Foundation outlines. And Sahuaripa, just like Di Peso thought, you know, has a lot of shell, that is coming from probably from the coast. I don't know if from Guaymas, but it's coming from some areas in the coast, and has some Chihuahuan ceramics too, and this one here in the lower corner is a copper bell, a smashed copper bell, but even has a copper bell. And the Casas Grandes ceramics in Zaguaripa, we did some studies, and all of the 5 of 7 that we sent to the nuclear activation research laboratory, all of them were made in Casas Grandes. So they, in fact, the people in Zaguaripa were able to get the
ceramics from directly from Casas Grandes spare.
Well, now we are back in Fronteras. Fronteras is a higher valley, it's like 1,500 meters above sea level. And we are going back a little bit just for a commercial, but 75 or 80 million years ago, the Cabullona Basin was located between Cananea and Fronteras, and there was a very big lake that existed there with big conifer bosques and 70 million years ago, but there are several sites with dinosaurs, So in the sediments of the lake, there are footprints of dinosaurs of 2 or 3 different species. There are fossils, there are preserves, tree trunks, and many things. So if you want to visit Fronteras, and we are going to be there in the summer, so if you want to organize a visit, you can see the dinosaurs and then the archaeology too. Okay, the Fronteras Valley, well, it's more moisture. It has more moisture than Zaguaripa because it's a little bit more high, the elevation, and this looks like this. And well, we register a lot of sites in the valley.
It's predominantly Chihuahuan desert.
Yeah, with some other. No. But it is high. It's 1,500. Yeah, right, meters over the sea level. Yeah. Okay. Is the audio okay?
It's good now. It's good now. It went away, but it's good now.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We got a sign that it was unstable.
So here you can see some of the sites in Fronteras. The Presidio is right here where the town of Fronteras is. And well, we found out with this investigation that we did in 2019 that we have at least one date on one heart located in the arroyo that is AD 50. So people in Fronteras were there at least for a millennium, more, 2 millenniums.
Yeah.
And we've found El Víbora is one of the early sites that is a pit house village, and probably an agricultural village, that is between 550 and 700 AD 550, 700, and has all this ceramic that is, I don't know what, is brush, that is a little bit like the Magion early ceramics. Turucachi Viejo is a site that has Río Sonora and Paquimé architecture at the same time. So again, it's in a mesa, located in the valley, and we found a lot of some adobe walls, and we have a date that is AD 1270 to 1380, and human inhumation that was dated at 700 and 800 or 800 AD. So again, it's a site that was occupied for at least 600 years or more. Also, we have in the same site, we have a Rio Sonora structure. No, we have the Paquimé structure and then the Rio Sonora, and some ceramics like this corrugated that is more like a Rio Sonora corrugated, but we have the carretas
In size.
I mean in size, Rio Sonora in size, and then we have carretas that is one of the Paquimé ceramics. Ojo de Agua is a Casas Grandes site, and maybe it's the most interesting site that we found in the area. Now we have dates from 1200 to 1350, and then from in one of the loci, and then another locus is 1400 to 1600. And here we were able to excavate one room, no, almost one room, that has some of the characteristics of the Casas Grandes architecture, together with at least 200 Casas Grandes ceramics. No, has one of these
Platform hearth,
that is found in Casas Grandes.
typical feature of the Casas Grandes architecture.
And in the summer, we want to go and excavate some of these mounds, well-preserved architectural mounds of the sites, because, well, originally this site was registered by Sauer and Brown, no? in the 1940s, and then was excavated in 1977 by Beatrice Braniff, and she found a burial, human burial with a maca and with copper bell. No, we don't know where the artifacts are, but she reported that. So could be a very interesting site. And if you see, it's like the adobe walls are like Paquimé, but much smaller. Okay.
The mounds at Ojo de Agua appear to contain at least 2 stories.
Mm-hmm. So it's an interesting site. Las Hormigas is another site that have adobe walls, Chihuahuan polychromes, and some turquoise too. No, and here we have a date that is 1210 and 1270. All are from the medieval period of Casas Grandes. And then in the lower portions, we also have a date that is AD 1022 and 1150. So again, all the sites are occupied for a long period of times. No? El Estadio is one of the other sites that we did some excavation, and is located again in a mesa, no, high mesa around the valley. And here we excavated a room in a larger room block, and again it has some architectural mounds. But the Estadio, the interesting thing in the Estadio is that was a site that gives us a date of younger than 1670, you know. So will be a colonial site, you know, with some nails and copper artifacts that were all together in under the floor with a rock in the top. So seems to be like a offering of the house, like in the Pueblo area are used, are used to make these offerings. But at the same time, even if we have a very late date, we also have a 600 date, so a long occupation in the site again,
So that it's an occupation that spans the prehistoric to colonial period, and obviously shows interaction with the colonial Spanish with the iron and copper objects.
And also, well, El Estadio site has Mimbres shirts, you know, so the date of 600 doesn't look so weird because we have these shirts in that site, no. But the casas polychromes that we found in Fronteras are from, we have a lot of Carretas polychrome. That is the closest, what do you call it?
Branch of the Casas Grandes
Casas.
sphere.
And something interesting that we have in these shirts is that some of them has glaze. So we don't know why exactly, but in Suni there is glaze ceramics, and also in the Rio Grande. So it could be some influence of that areas. These ones have the glaze. Texture types, well, many of them looks to be like from the Rio Sonora area, but there are some, this one in the red, in red, are tool punch corrugated that could be Cloverdale corrugated. That is from the Magyar culture. No, so we have the two cultures here.
Yeah, Animas face of Casas Grandes.
On the Animas face of Casas Grandes too. And something that we have found out is that projectile points are cultural markers in the valleys, because the points that we found in Sahuaripa, they are not in Fronteras. And so every valley distinguishes themselves by the projectile points. No. And here, the ones in red are the ones that are in Fronteras, and all the other ones are the ones that are in Sahuaripa. Also, we did some obsidian sourcing, and here we saw that Fronteras got obsidian from many places, from Los Vidrios in the Papagueria, west in the border, from the Sierra del Fresnal in Chihuahua, from Cuo Canyon too, and then from Wind Canyon too. That is, Cuo Canyon will be a little more close to the Mimbres area, and Wind Canyon to the Pueblo. No, but the thing interesting about the obsidian is that Fronteras get obsidian from all these areas to the north, but doesn't get any obsidian from the Rio Sonora or from Sahuaripa. Okay. Several sites in the Fronteras Valley show a strong Casas Grandes affiliation. So here in this map, you can see Fronteras and Esqueda, and they have a very strong affiliation, but ceramic data indicates regular, if not voluminous, exchange between Casas Grandes and Sahuaripa and the Sonora Valley. So the Banamiche and the Babiácora are the Rio Sonora valleys, and the Sahuaripe and the Aribechi have some relationship with Casas Grandes, but not like Fronteras, no, a lot less. And the Moctezuma Valley and the Bacanora and the Onabas Valley, they don't have any interaction, even if they are very close by, no, but they don't have any interaction with Casas Grandes. Well, now here about the origins of the Opatería, no, there are several paradigms about this, no, and for a long time, Tita Braniff and some other scholars thought that when Casas Grandes was abandoned, the people for Casas Grandes came to Sonora and were the Opatas, no, because when the Spanish got to Casas Grandes, nobody was there, you know, the population disappeared. So they say that, well, we're the Opatas, no, that were in these areas. And Wilcox, for example, always say that there was the Pima connection. So these Pimas and the lower Pimas were a continuum, and the Opatas interrupt this continuum. But this is no real for us, because with all our work, we have seen that the sites are occupied for many, many years, you know, since AD 600. So the long occupations doesn't help with this paradigm. However, John Carpenter, for many years, for 20 years, he had a new paradigm that is the Cayetan connection. No. Now, if you see the distribution of 16th century linguistic groups, you can see that looks more like a Cayetan connection, because Tahues, Mayos, and Yaquis that are in the coastal plain, and Opatas are Cayetan, are from the same family of the Cayetas. And apparently the Pimas were the ones that were coming down and interrupt this connection, no? And on the other way around. Do you want to say?
Just add that according to Tom Sheridan, who was the last EHO student of Ned Spicer, pointed out to me that he believed that due to 16th century descriptions by the Spanish, that they described the Pima as occupying more marginal lands that implied that they were recent or are able to the region, as compared with the Opata and Yaqui and Mayo.
Well, now talking about the mission and the Presidio period, we excavated also a site that is called Badehuachi, and that one has an adobe wall with these adobes that are very different than the ones from Casas Grandes. But here we have a very good date, about 1700 AD.
Precise.
So very precise date that I'm not gonna tell you.
OSL.
But it's very hard to explain, but well, it's a very good precise date. No? So this will be contemporaneous to the Presidio. No? Also, La Paloma, that is la visita de Cuchuta, also has the same adobes. Probably they could be contemporaneous. Here you can see part of the plaza in the lower photograph. No, you can see part of the plaza, and is what is left of this visita de Cuchuta. No, and something that we realize in Fronteras is that there are colonial and pre-colonial site pairing. So here, this is the Capilla de Turicachi, and then the Puente de Turicachi site, and one is archaeological, or I mean pre-Hispanic, and the other one is colonial, but they are together. And then the same here in the, I think that this is Las Hormigas site, and then the Cuchuta, the Visita de Cuchuta site, and they are together. So it's obvious that the Spanish are leaving the towns that they were, and they are building the Visitas very close or right there, you know, where the Opatas were living.
The pre-Hispanic occupations.
The pre-Hispanic occupations and the colonial are together.
Continue into the colonial period.
And this is kind of a obvious thing, because the Opatas had buildings like the Spaniards, no? So they didn't have to do much, you know, just live in the same houses. Okay, the Presidio de los Apaches, the Presidio Frontera de los Apaches. Well, here, this is what is left of the Presidio, these photographs. No, a Jesuit mission of Cucarachi was founded in 1645, and then the Presidio de Fronteras de los Apaches was established in 1692. Here in 1735, Juan Bautista de Anza was born. No, de Anza was born. No, in here, de Anza. De Anza was born. Okay. His father and his grandfather were comandantes, no?
Yeah, military
Mili-
commanders of the
of the
Presidio
Presidio. Mhm.
prior.
Of this Presidio. Do you want to say anything else?
I
About
want to
the-
say,
the-
his name was Anza.
Anza,
not
no,
Anda.
okay, sorry. Well, looking at the historical documents tell us about the havoc left by the Spanish conquest in the indigenous people in the 17th and 18th centuries. Cucarachi, Cuchuta, and Terucachi were three pueblos that support the Presidio with soldiers and food. In 1680, there were 830 soldiers aiding the Presidio. By 1730, there were only 230 left, and by 17 is wrong, but by 1730 there were only 260, and by 1740 were only 190 soldiers left. No. So if you see here in this map, the Presidio de Fronteras was here in this dot, and then Curucachi was here. All the towns are at least like 20 kilometers apart from the Presidio. And then Cuchuta, and here is Turicachi. And all of these towns helped the Presidio, you know.
Provided auxiliaries.
Provided auxiliaries and food, and so this was the frontier really, you know, because all the sites are to the south. Here from Cucarachi, you can get to the Rio Sonora very easy, you know, from this area. Yeah. Okay. So the future research objectives that we have for the project is to document the colonial occupation, including the Presidio, Misión, and Visitas, the integration and interaction with Paquimé and Casas Grandes world, the western extension of the Carretas branch into the Fronteras Valley, the interaction and integration between Casas Grandes and the Rio Sonora tradition, and refining the principal characteristics of the Opatería. This is what we want to do, and we are going to go to the field now in May. So if you want to visit the dinos and the archaeology, you can. And we thanks everybody that worked in this project. Thank you.
Awesome.
I hope that was clear.
Yes, no, thank you both very much. You know,
We can address questions if anyone has questions, more than happily.
Sounds great. Yeah, let's open it up to Q&A. Actually, the first question we have here in the chat is from Nancy from London. She says, how fantastic. Apologies for being such a novice, but how do you start an investigation of such a large area? And how do you know something is there to excavate?
Get lucky. We began our work in the Rio Fuerte with systematic survey, walking, you know, group of people walking together and looking for artifacts and describing everything we found. And when it looked to be productive archaeologically, we began excavation, excavations to explore the remains.
But yeah, you walk and find the sites.
Survey.
And survey, and then you can ask people too. And sometimes they know, you know.
Thank
For
you.
example, a site, Buyabampo, that we found and excavated extensively in Sinaloa was just outside of the town of Buyabampo. They had no idea that it existed.
Yeah.
The residence.
It was a pretty big site, but was buried. So it's very hard to see.
Thank you. The next question comes from John O'Rourke. Do you use LIDAR at all? LIDAR? LIDAR?
No, we haven't yet. That is used mostly in the heavier vegetated regions in Mexico, like the Maya.
And with bigger structures. The structures here are small. You have to find it walking.
And the Presidio de Fronteras is much like the Tubac Presidio, no? That there was no kind of enclosure wall. It was almost just like a civil settlement, a military civil settlement.
Yeah,
Yeah,
apparently, yeah. You know,
it seems to be, a small contiguous room around an interior plaza space that they could keep the horses
mhm.
and not is not defensive.
Yeah.
No.
There is very little information about the Presidio from Fronteras, but right now we have a student that is doing his master's, and he's waiting that the COVID pandemic finish so he can review all the archives, because
Mexico
in Mexico City, because there are very little written about it, so it's hard to know, but and then. The last time that we were there, we didn't do anything with the Presidio, so we didn't do any collections or see what walls can you see or anything. So that is something that we have to do in the summer.
And what do you think was going through, what was the circumstances that they selected, the Spanish government in 1680 decided to select that site to place a Presidio, right? So this was kind of like when the Pueblo Revolt was going on in New Mexico.
Right.
Was that a consideration, or
That had to do with the foundation of Janos in Chihuahua in 1690 as a result of the Pueblo Revolt in New Mexico. So the Presidio in Fronteras was obviously associated with the Presidio in Janos.
And then, well, there was a lot of people in Fronteras, no?
Yeah.
If they can have like 800 soldiers, Indian, native soldiers, is a lot of people, no? So I think that maybe that was the other consideration. And then the Opatas were willing to, because they had problems with the Apaches, to help the Spaniards, no? And they have some problems with the Pima too. So
and the term Fronteras comes from the Presidio as Fronteras de los Apaches. And that was the edge of civilization.
Yeah.
In comparison with the Apaches.
So Nancy from London says, it seems mounds of earths are always worth investigating. Is this the kind of sort of thing that you look for?
Yeah, they're called, in Chihuahua, they're called Moctezumas as a reference to Moctezuma as
the pyramid.
Yeah, the Aztec. But adobe melts into a mound when it weathers. They form, predominant mounds on the landscape.
And then
that we suspect indicate at least 2 stories in Ojo de Agua.
And then there's another question here from John. He says that you said that the people of the valleys received ceramics directly from Casa Grande. What did they trade in return?
We suspect that Sauripa lay on the long distance exchange route from Sinaloa, that goods moved through Sahuaripa to Paquimé. So as Lupita mentioned, shell was
Seashell.
was the prime motivator, according to Charles de Peso, the original excavator of Casas Grandes.
But in Casas Grandes, there was a room full of shells. You
Yeah.
know, I don't know how many
Millions.
millions of shells from the sea. So
Yeah,
They-
this next question from Nancy is you've kind of answered it, but you mentioned shells. Were these a form of currency or valued? So apparently, yes,
They
very much
were
so.
exotic, materials that were highly desired for ornaments.
like turquoise, obsidian too, and shells.
Among the photos that Lupita showed of one of the sites in Sahuaripa was a pectoral of shell for hanging on the chest that was made of Pictata mazatlanica,
Mhm.
which comes from is in this style typical of the Aztlan culture in Sinaloa.
Interesting.
So and the copper bell,
Yeah, too.
provides further evidence of long distance exchange that I believe formed the route that Lupita mentioned, that of the earliest Spaniards to pass through the region, including Cabeza de Vaca when he was coming down, and he encountered the Spaniards in the area around Sinaloa de Leyva on the Rio Sinaloa, which is at exactly the same longitude of Sahuaripa,
Mhm.
going further south. If you go south into Sinaloa,
Mhm.
they must have, Cabeza de Vaca must have passed through that region. And as Lupita also mentioned, the subsequent Spanish explorers going north followed this exact same route, including Ibarra and
Coronado.
Coronado and
Mhm.
Marcos de Niza,
Marcos de Niza, yeah.
who was an inveterate liar. You can't trust anything Cabeza de Vaca said. He apparently lost all his nerve when his fellow missionary or Franciscan, I think, Fray Honorato, took sick and remained in Sinaloa.
Mhm.
And so I believe that Marcos de Niza interviewed local people and claimed, that he went and saw these things that he probably didn't actually see. And if you reconstruct his return, her return to Mexico City, and plot the time involved, he would have had to race a horse almost nonstop from Sonora to Mexico City to arrive.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
related to that, I suspect strongly that Esteban, who was rumored to have died in Zuni, I strongly suspect that he fabricated his demise to escape the clutches of Spain and thereby gain his freedom, which I strongly believe that his previous owner Dorantes, had offered him his freedom upon surviving the journey from Texas to Mexico City, and was no doubt disappointed to be acquired by the viceroy and sent to accompany Marcos de Niza back to the north.
Yeah.
There's a river in the Sierra Madre of Sonora that it's called Mulatos, and that seemingly implies, and there are records that report that the cacique, or the head of the village there, was a mulatto, or a mixed, Negroid and indigenous origin. So I suspect that that's a further confirmation of Esteban surviving and reproducing in Sonora.
Yeah, it's a fascinating kind of thing to think about,
History.
what happened to him, and I've even heard that there's a Kachina deity in Zuni that some take to be an interpretation of Esteban, a darker colored, I think it's called Chakwaina or something like that is what that is. But yeah, that's a fascinating kind of what happened to him, so distant from the authorities in New Spain and all of that.
I think one of the things that's curious about his supposed demise for womanizing in Zuni is that Esteban served as the shaman, and he was the go-between between the Spaniards and all the indigenous peoples that they met along their way. And so I find it surprising that he would commit an cultural affront, be so culturally inappropriate with the indigenous peoples.
Yeah, it would seem strange, right? They had just wandered through there for 7 years and learning kind of mores and what to do and what not to do, to have him, at the first encounter Zuni be, taken out for his poor actions. Seems kind of, it does seem pretty strange. I agree with you.
In an aside related to the Cabeza de Vaca migration south, he was joined by 300 Pimas, and who went on to establish a pueblo in Sinaloa called Bamoa near Guasave. That the fact that 300 Pimas would be willing to abandon their territory and follow Cabeza de Vaca toward the south, it lends further credence to the idea that the Pimas were recent arrivals to the regions and were inhabiting the most marginal territories.
Yeah, those are fascinating details for sure. The open questions that presents, the clout that they had to have that many people follow them. That's so fascinating. Absolutely. And so Nancy's just following up here. So we're talking about hundreds of miles from the coast, right? Where you discover these shells in the interior valleys of Sonora, right? So it's pretty.
We believe that most of the shale flowed along the Rio Yaqui from the Sea of Cortez, or from further south in Sinaloa up the long distance exchange route that was established for trade purposes by Aztlan to Paquimé, and also might explain the fact that Francisco Ibarra was the first Spaniard to end up in Paquimé. It makes sense if he was following the known trade route north, and as well as I imagine it was common knowledge to the indigenous peoples to point the way south to Cabeza de Vaca in his original pass through the region would be following the known late pre-Hispanic exchange route.
I'm following the maze too.
Yeah.
The Valley of the Maze.
It's, yeah, the valley.
Awesome. Well, do we have any last minute questions for John or Lupita? We're almost at the hour mark, and just want to feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question too, or type it into the chat. Anything else? Nope. Awesome. Well, I just wanted to say what a treat it was to be able to connect with you both and to kind of bridge the border through the field of archaeology, really, and learn about our neighbor Sonora that we have so many important connections to. And it's an even more delight because I'm coming to you from Tubac, where Anza was the comandante, and you were investigating where he was born there in Fronteras.
Sure, yeah.
So maybe we could do a sister cities program between
Right.
Fronteras. So,
but as fair warning, we're probably going to show up begging with our hat held out to approach the Friends of De Anza as the founder of San Francisco, looking for funds to continue research in the Colonial Presidio and mission and visitas of Fronteras.
Well, I would love to help you in extending that handout with the hat to also help your efforts as well. And I just want to say that the Anza Society is supposedly meeting in Banamichi in October. So that would be definitely a good time to put out those hats too.
Good.
Awesome. Well, it's always a
Duly
delight.
noted. Thanks for the tip, Alex.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you both so much for taking the time today, and I hope to
Bye.
see you guys
Thank
in
you to
person
everybody.
Thank
real
you to everyone.
Alrighty. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
Stay safe.
Bye.